start that sentence over? You can't say his name. Oh
I know,
my
sorry.
God.
Well, it's Mark's, and so it's
Girl.
so close. I know you didn't just give me that head bob or that finger pointing. Like, I know that
You did it really well, though.
But you're lucky that I like you so much, Lazarus. You're lucky. I'm a comfort.
Public space travel. Public space travel.
And so on and so on.
I can't help but believe that in the future we'll see throughout the world an increasing trend toward the next logical step. We'll achieve full communism.
Public space travel. Public space travel.
And so on and so on.
Welcome to the Public Space Travel Podcast. I'm your host, Lazarus Wolf. With us today is Lucy.
Yes, hello.
Shadow producer Marks. Hey. And our new co-host, Hunty.
Hey.
Hunty.
Hunty.
How's everybody doing?
Fabulous.
So well.
Excellent.
Sure.
Excellent.
Should we introduce Hunty a little bit to the
Oh, yeah.
audience?
Yes, please. Hunty, did you want to introduce yourself?
I was not prepared to do that, but I'll say no. No, just kidding. It's improv.
Okay.
I'm supposed to say
Moving
yes
on.
and to everything. Yes, I'd like to introduce myself, and that's about it.
Excellent. All right. Well, we got an excellent episode today. It's going to be diversity and tech. I guess we could just jump straight into this. Few things that administrative things we gotta get out of the way. Our Patreon is now set up, so please help us out so we can make awesome content and get that funding for that. You can check it out at patreon.com/publicspacetravel. And of course, we'll put in the show notes here. You can follow us on Twitter. All right, let's begin. So, talking about diversity in tech today. Lucy, you're in the tech field. Did you want to briefly talk about just some introductive kind of comments here?
Yeah, so I'll jump this off. So I work in tech. I work as a web developer for an unnamed company in an unnamed city.
In an unnamed state.
And just getting into this, I think most people who will listen to this podcast will be aware that there is a huge disparity with minorities, people of color, and women working in the tech field and various tech-related jobs. First thing I want to bring up, there's a CEO for a company called Treehouse. The company's called Treehouse. The CEO's name is Ryan Carson. Treehouse is an online coding school. You pay a monthly subscription, it's like $25 a month, and you can learn most languages, web development related on there.
Yeah, so I did a little bit of research on the Treehouse, and they have a commitment to equity, diversity, and inclusion portion where they kind of outline some of their goals. They place an emphasis on investing in women and people of color from local communities to provide the opportunity for a career path with us with partner companies. They want to work to understand and remove behaviors that hold women and people of color back in career progression. I guess for me, it just seems a little like I think this is great that they're doing this. I think maybe the problem here is that maybe I'm jumping the gun here, but
It's a double-edged sword, isn't it? Because we want to see increased diversity in tech, and also there's a savior complex that is providing this sort of platform for humans to say, yep, we want to increase diversity, and we're the folks to do it. All us white dudes. As a cisgender white woman, I feel like I can speak to this white experience to some degree, and I find it really problematic.
absolutely.
I guess I should say, I don't think I've ever said this on the podcast, but I am, I don't have to this, I'm a Latin American getting into this field, so it's sort of like a personal issue for me, but it's hard as a Latin American, or it's been difficult to know sort of my place in questioning this field in this way. It's hard because, like you're saying, like it's the person or the people who are in the best position to make the change are also somewhat responsible for the change not happening.
Yeah, no, I would say that without the question mark. I would say that as a declarative sentence. The people who have to make the changes are the people who are responsible for it not being diverse in the first place. Period. Exclamation point.
Period.
No caveat. Yeah. I'll say it I can say it. I'm not in the
Thank
tech
you.
industry, so I have like zero qualm being like middle fingers.
So like when I first, we're segueing now into more about Ryan Carson. So when I first came across his story and his whole awakening, I should say.
Yes.
And he started posting on Twitter about there's this issue at my company with all a bunch of white dudes. What's up with that, y'all? Let me try and change this. Wrote a couple of articles. Treehouse started to expand its own articles on its blog regarding this issue. At first, I was excited because that was to me that was the first white person in tech who had a position of exceeding power to bring up this issue and actually talk about it in any kind of real meaningful way. Since that time, I haven't really seen a lot of other examples who gone as far to say as much as he said, although, as we'll get into, his awakening is also filled with, it's a treacherous path he walks. So I'm going to read off of Ryan's article that he wrote earlier this year in February, titled Diversity. It's not them, it's you. So it begins off by saying, I hear a lot of CEOs and managers say that they are trying to diversify their teams, but that not enough women or people from the Black, Latinx, or LGBTQ communities are applying for the job openings. The truth is, as a CEO or hiring manager, if your teams are not diverse, it's your fault, no one else's. Cool. That's awesome. So moving on further down this article, he goes on to say, I looked around the company, saw this bunch of white dudes. I was like, how do I change that? Wandering around the cities, this is Portland, he says, I realized that I had few black friends and no Latinx business contacts. The truth is, I didn't even know where to build those relationships. I tried to put myself in a black or brown developer's shoes when applying for a job at my company. I couldn't, because I had no information about how that would feel. I had no idea what it would feel like to be in the minority, so I set out to put myself outside of my comfort zone and try to find out. This is the crossing of the threshold moment for him.
His awakening.
Apparently.
He's about to become woke.
He's woken. God. Can we just talk about like a couple aspects of this that are just like so deeply problematic? Like he just now realized he has few black friends and no Latinx business contacts. So like he's building his Rolodex. Like I'm not entirely sure what that sentence is supposed to. Okay, so that's fine. So, and he didn't know how to build those relationships. It seems like he still hasn't. It seems like he wrote this article without ever talking to a person of color about how cringy this is. Is cringy the right maybe verb? It's hard to read and look at because
it's like it's kind of like, do you feel like this is like the air quotes here, like woke white person, like basically that version of like Trump's comments of like, where's my black friends, where are they, are they,
I mean,
there's
kinda,
my black friend.
But I mean, he also talks about he has no idea what it'd feel like to be in the minority. The thing is that as a white man, he kind of already is. It's just that he's never been without the privilege of whiteness, and so he talks about, I have no idea what it feels like to be in the minority. No, dude, you've never recognized that as a white man, there are more people of color than you, and there are more women than you. It's just that you've always had power. And so, oh, God, there's so many parts that are really painful. Oh, but I think that I love this next part, and I can't wait for Lucy to get into the barbershop moment. So.
Yeah, okay, so here we go. So, crossing the threshold, our young hero comes upon a barbershop, of all places. He says, so my chance had come in the shape of a barbershop. I had been going to the same book online and get someone different every time barbershop for a long time. I needed to change, and also I needed a haircut. As I was driving one day, I noticed a black barbershop. I had never considered getting my haircut at a place that was frequented by predominantly black people before. This was my chance to be out of my comfort zone. I called and made an appointment. I'm going to go on to the next paragraph.
To like call
all the chairs. Oh, go ahead. Sorry, what?
I was saying it's kind of, isn't that like really white to like make an appointment? Maybe, I don't know. Hello, good sir. I would like to know if I can get a fade, perhaps later this week at Thursday at 3 p.m.
Thursday
Does that fit
3?
your schedule?
That works for me. Thank you for calling.
I can imagine, like, I totally expected him to say, like, I called to make an appointment, and to my surprise, they say, just come down here.
Yeah. It's crazy.
Whoa, this is like anarchy over there.
And for the record, this is not how Treehouse business practices function. I just want to put that out there.
Okay, so, but again, complex, right? So, like, is it, so there have been TV shows where folks have done this, right? Where, like, white people go into a predominantly what they would consider black establishment, like a barbershop, to, like, do this, like, social project, right? Or, like, social, what is the word that I'm looking for? Yeah, like a project. Like let's see what happens. What would you do?
It is always kind of like a project. Like,
right.
Like a fish out of water story.
Yes, exactly. And so, okay, so the way he's framing it, again, obviously has never maybe even talked to a person of color before, and definitely no women, probably no people of color proofread this article before he submitted it to Fast Company, for God's sakes. But also, good for you. Like, I don't even want to say good for you. I'm like, dude, why did you publish this?
He's kind of taking like this cringy like white anthropologist like take of it. Like this society I just
Yeah.
All these black people over there. I must be quiet.
And all to put himself in black and brown shoes.
Do you think that like he hey mom, yeah, earlier today, you'll never guess where I went. Yeah, I went to a black barbershop, right?
Yeah, but it's all for, again, black friends or Latinx business contacts.
Right, it's still, and I think we'll get into this a little bit later, like it's still for this like capitalist, oppressive like end, right?
Yeah. And obviously to be able to print this article. I mean, like, this is no publicity is bad publicity, right? And so you write this article and you don't have people sitting there critiquing the stuff that are happening in front of them. So there are plenty of white folks in the tech field right now reading this like, wow, that was brave. God, I don't know that I could do that. Ryan, he's something else. He's a hero. Do you want to keep talking about his awokeness?
His coming of awokeness? Yeah.
His anthropological take on the layout of the barbershop?
Oh my fucking
God. It's so good. So he's made an appointment at this point, and now he's at his appointment. Our young hero, so this is very cool. All the chairs face the middle of the room. That's useful information, which meant there was no way to escape being part of the group. Everyone was friendly, and no one did anything to make me feel like I wasn't welcome. But they also didn't change the way they were talking or what they were talking about. I felt nervous about joining in because I didn't understand parts of the conversation. After my hair was cut, I realized for that brief moment, I had felt a tiny fraction of what it was like to be in the minority. I continued to return to that barber for several months to learn more empathy and build relationships.
Business contacts.
I started listening to Lil Pump, and I now know.
Did you guys know that Lil Uzi doesn't actually have an Uzi?
Oh my God.
He felt nervous joining in because he didn't understand parts of the conversation.
Yeah, because they're speaking in a different language.
A different.
I was a little scared. They said they were part of the Gucci gang, and I don't know how I feel about organized crime.
There was no way to escape being part of the group. So in the context of his business, okay, so capitalist enterprise, he goes to a place where they make money cutting hair, and he's like, they were nice to me. No, really? You made an appointment, you idiot. First of all, they knew you weren't from around here. Second of all, yeah, they need your money. They figured probably it was, they figured cameras were coming with him. Let's just be really honest. Like, you call a barbershop for an appointment. God.
Also, I didn't realize this at the time, but why didn't he give a shout out to the barbershop? Why is it not included here?
Yeah.
That would be so easy.
Yeah, just generic barbershop. It was a barbershop in Portland. How many? I'm about to Google that on my tiny pocket computer and see how many barbershops are in the
Black
Portland metro
barbershop
area.
in Portland.
It's gonna be 4. I'm gonna call and be like, "Hey, are you the barbershop that this treehouse dude came to? Was he weird? Tell the truth."
Do you
Yeah,
think that
tell
like
us.
he
We need
actually
the
like
inside
made this
scoop.
up? Do you think he
what?
made it up? Like,
He
this
could've
kind of
made it
reads
up.
somebody who's like actually never done any of this and just like kind of like, okay, well, let me imagine all of the seats were facing each other and I couldn't get away. Yeah, okay, I think that's what a barbershop is like.
That actually doesn't make a lot of sense if you've ever been in any sort of place where you got your hair cut. I don't know.
Right.
This is why I want to call the barbershops in Portland, just ask.
He probably
Some
just watched the
random-
movie Barbershop.
Yeah,
And then went from there.
3 times. He didn't understand what they were saying either.
There's like English, but it's not. I gotta look at the script.
God. The good news is that he did listen to a podcast later, so that's really great. He listened to the Seeing White podcast. I think it's good to shout out other podcasts, probably, right? I mean, that's great. Seeing White. What is that all about? I have not listened to it.
He did make a point to highlight another podcast, yes. So this still makes me think that he probably did lie about the barbershop.
Oh yeah, I definitely, because I know what words to use and I know to say, but he keeps using the word minority too, and I'm like, I'm pretty sure any podcast called Seeing White, he's like, Seeing White helped me understand that white is a color too. Girl, no it isn't. White, oh, girl. I was explaining
A color that gives me privilege.
It's a color that gives me privilege. Girl, you're not white. I had this conversation with my students once when I was teaching, and they were talking to one another, and their skin color came into the conversation. And so one little girl said, "Oh, well, this other little girl, she white like Miss because I was the only like white human in the room." And I made them get a domino, and I was like, "What color is that?" They're like, "It's white." I was like, "Okay, what color am I?" And they were like, "Oh, you're peach." And so from then on, but I mean, it's like this idea that white is like this monolithic thing or monolithic culture, and that's absolutely not true. And I told Lazarus once that I don't capitalize white when we're talking about cultural things. I do capitalize the word black because black can be a culture. White is not monolithic. It's going to be different from place to place, and it is about privilege. So like, good job, Ryan. I'm giving you snaps for that one. But however,
Do you hear us, Ryan?
he
Calling you out.
also read the new Jim Crow. So that was something else.
Bully for him.
Fully for him. It changed the way he thinks about the justice system. And so now he's all about equity and human rights and taking down the industrial prison complex, right? Prison
Yeah.
industrial complex? Yes. Okay, that's what I thought that meant.
Yep. He's had the meeting with the goddess, and so he's I love like in this whole thing, it really does read like he's like, here's my origin story of how I became the greatest CEO ever. Like, this is all so planned. Because he goes on to say how he's like, okay, I was becoming educated about issues surrounding social justice, but I still haven't made any actual business partnerships with people from underrepresented groups. I'd heard of Afrotech and dismissed it previously. Nevertheless, I bought a ticket and went. I was probably one of 2 or 3 white faces in the crowd. I spent the day talking to so many great people and came out with a pocket full of business cards who would become new friends and allies. Now that I had newfound empathy and allies, it was time to partner with them to discover the local talent who would actually apply for my vacant jobs.
He used the guys he met at the barbershop. He's like, I told the guys at the barbershop, I was like, you need to put out word that I am hiring. And then he stopped going because that took 2 months. And he was like, okay, I don't need to come here to get my hair cut anymore. My fade doesn't look
That's
right.
probably why he didn't give them a shout out, because he knew they would talk shit about him.
I know, for real.
It's true. It's so true.
The barbershop guys, according to Ryan, said that he should contact the Boys and Girls Clubs of America, Dress for Success, and the Urban League. So apparently in Portland, all people of color utilize these types of services. Does he know what that means? He's like, what's Dress for Success? That sounds lovely. Do they carry Tom Ford?
That Ryan guy, why do you even let him in here? Don't let him in every time.
Yeah,
I stop coming because Ryan comes in and he asks a lot of stupid questions.
And it's funny because he's like, but it worked out for me, y'all, because he had 1 or 2 interviewees who were women or black or Latinx for every position they had open at his thing. His teams became more diverse. He doesn't talk anymore about the LGBTQ community. I wonder if he recognized that maybe you can't always tell just by looking at a human whether or not they identify as such. So
It's hard to say because he hasn't written an origin story article about it, so we'll never really know.
He hasn't written an origin story article. I would love to see statistics about the diversity numbers of Treehouse and how they compare to other tech. Like, is it really that much better at this point? Like, when did he write his origin story?
So this was
Only in
February
February.
of this year.
Only in February. I don't know if we'll be able to tell at this point, right?
I think it'd be too soon.
Too soon.
I'm doing a quick search. We may have to edit this part, but I'm gonna do a quick Google search.
I'm doing a internet time machine on the website teamtreehouse.com, and it like started in 2007, and it's just kind of like, like you just started a website that just has like one word on it. But you can see as it goes over through the years, like it does begin like nothing with diversity initially, but then like I'm looking in, where is it? Like in 2015, it's like it doesn't say anything about diversity. It's more about just like learn code, and that's pretty like there's a white lady on it, and she's like, now I can sit down in front of a computer and turn an idea into something tangible, something profitable. It literally changed my life. And then just going further through the years here, now we're finally up to 2018, and it's still not explicit about the diversity aspect. So it's interesting that this article you're reading from is written in 2019, and it does seem like it was a recent thing that he got his hair cut.
He went there for months. How fast did dude's hair grow? Like, how often would he probably need to go? Like, once a month? So he went there like 3 times, you think, maybe?
Oh, wait, hold on. In 2018, September 26, 2018, they have a thing under the heading Art Impact, and it says Treehouse believes in the democratization of technical education. There are currently too many barriers, economical and psychological. Our students learn at their own pace and become job ready within months at a fraction of the cost. We are committed to making education accessible to students of all races, genders, sexual orientations, and socioeconomic backgrounds. And then you just scroll down like a tiny bit more, and it's like our leadership, and it's like this white guy Ryan, this other white guy, and a white lady, and then like that's it.
Tight.
So it must have been like something really recently where he's like, oh my god.
Did you say that was October?
That was September of 2018.
September 26th. So it was, there was a ton of stuff about Melinda Gates and the Gates Foundation working to get more diversity in tech early in September and even as early as like March. And so, I don't know, maybe he's trying to get some of that sweet coin from the Gates Foundation. He's like, is this what we're doing now? This is all.
You know what?
I hear the call.
That's actually interesting.
I hear the call.
The sound of money. The trumpets blaring. To the Twitter.
Dun, 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 dun. Oh, the whole origin story and hero is all coming together. I love it.
He does have in his Twitter thing, he has Ryan Carson and then parentheses he him. Wow.
Oh, actually, that makes me happy. Thank you for letting us know what your correct pronouns were.
I do like
After that article, I'm not surprised. But, I mean, that is nice that he...
Yeah, so I do want to say, like, it's like he is trying, and he's the only, like I said, the only one that I've seen who is trying, at least given any type of effort, no matter how cringy it may be.
You know, it's funny though that in terms of like labeling, putting his pronouns on his Twitter, I mean that's a power move too, right? Like not all humans are going to feel like they can or should put their pronouns necessarily on their Twitter account, and I have not seen. I mean, like sometimes you'll see, you know, like Latinx social justice advocate or like black feminist, you know, but oftentimes, and that's like in their, you know, like their little blurb about themselves, but. I mean, sometimes it's not safe for people to put their pronouns on social media.
It's true.
Yeah. There's something in I believe it's in the Fast Company article, where he does say to the companies, just instead of saying they're not applying, find out why, and then ask how you can help. That's sort of like I think the takeaway he was trying to get from the article.
When did he do that, though? Like, when is that something? He doesn't say that he did that. He was like, I went to a barbershop, and I understood black culture. So I was like, hey, yo. He probably didn't say yo. He was like, excuse me, sir.
He did say yo.
I would like to make another appointment, and also, do you know other black people who work in tech?
Black people, specifically black. Well, I got a friend... His name is Joseph and he's white. Does that work? No, I need a black friend. Hey, black person, look at me in the eye. I need you to find your other black friends and get them to my company. I don't want to hear about your white friends. Okay?
I don't want to hear about your white friends. It's not funny. It's like hilarious, and on the other side, like, you know, there are other like tech professionals who are reading this. It's in Fast Company. Isn't this what all the tech gurus, like, don't a bunch of people read Fast Company? I personally do not. Sorry, Fast Company. This is not like a publication with which I am terribly familiar. However, I know that they have a ton. They're the ones, they were posting about Melinda Gates and her push to get more women and people of color in to tech, and so other folks are reading this, and they might be going to barbershops and still not asking the right questions. They just want to feel like they understand people who they think are different from them, and I don't know that that's the way to do that.
I almost picture, like, because Fast Company it's a pretty substantial publishing company, I think.
Yeah.
People, doing the same thing, going to whatever they think is the place to meet and recruit people. In the same kind of cringy fashion. But so first, from my end, I don't know what else they should do. I was trying to think about this when I was looking into this. It's like, from my end, I don't have enough information to know what's the right way to do this. The only thing I know is, from my perspective, growing up, I didn't even know that I wanted to get into development or the tech field for like years. Like when I was in middle school, I was into computers and things like that. I actually read a lot about Bill Gates. I got made fun of because I was surrounded by a lot of my peers who are mostly Latin and black students. And then there's this thing where if you, especially back then, if you were at all interested in like reading or learning things, you're like a nerd, so then you're ostracized. So in order to survive and fit in, I just kind of had to be like, all right, well, I want to be a cool kid because I'm tired of getting made fun of. But then, like, as I got older, I was like, well, let me go back and investigate. At this point, they have Free Code Camp, which is 100% free resource for learning coding. By the way, Ryan. And so kind of like for myself, like started to realize like, oh, actually I do like this. I wish I was doing this 10 years ago. Like I just enjoy this. And a lot of people I know are kind of in the same boat, or from my background have like the same situation where they don't know that this is something that is like a career path that is available to them, something they could do. And it's hard to, like, I don't know without meeting a specific person at a company I worked at who kind of gave me a little bit of knowledge about this, that I would have ever picked it up again or got into it. And I don't know how other people can get in a situation where they feel like this is something they could do for themselves or get into. The only thing I can think of is like this one cringy story of a white man coming in and being like, hey, hello, masses of people who need my help. How about this? Take a look what I got. Oh, I never considered. I'm so glad you came into my black barber shop. I would have never known.
Ugh, it's so gross.
Yeah.
But so that's Ryan's story. That's good old Ryan.
Good old Ryan. I was just doing looking back on some of the tweets by Ryan Carson, and he's definitely deleted some of his older ones, and there's one that's kind of questionable, and I'm trying to find out what it says, and I'm trying to find it. It's interesting. Like prior to his awakening, but we'll see.
I think that's all the information I have. Do we want to move on to rainbow socks?
Oh,
I forgot what that's about.
Yeah, well, I mean, we touched on that a little bit earlier, right? Like, he doesn't really talk about the LGBTQ folks, and I'm wondering if it's because in his self-discovery, he realized that not everybody is wearing a rainbow socks or a pride flag lapel pin, or isn't there a picture?
What he needs to do is give people pins to put on them so you can tell.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, maybe everybody should do a 23andMe so he knows exactly to what degree everybody is white or not.
Yeah, that would help him. We should come up with a list of ways to help Ryan become woke.
That would be so awesome. Things you can do to awaken. To awoken.
You know what? Maybe that is something we should publish, a how-to article of how to awake.
Yeah, how to be woke. There's a couple of books like that already. There's the one like things white people like. I feel like Ryan would understand that text. I feel like he would. I guess I have to listen to Seeing White first and see like how woke that podcast is and see like to what degree Ryan might already be learning.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Damn, I can't find the fucking tweet because he deleted it, but it said he was like responding to somebody and saying retweet, but he said that, quote, when we call these brutes, quote, terrorists, unquote, we boost their self-esteem. From now on, let's agree to call them baby-killing coward fucks. But I'm like, what is this in a response to? And obviously you deleted it, so I'm just like, Ryan Carson, what the hell? Who are you talking about?
Quite a temper.
Quite a temper. Anyway, so.
He's like, no, Trump stole my phone. It wasn't me.
It wasn't me, it was Kefefe.
Oh my God. So yeah, do we want to talk about kind of a little bit further like this notion of Treehouse wanting to be very inclusive, from the different like diversity of communities, people of color, groups, etc., and also the LGBTQ like community. Did you want to kind of talk a little bit more about because we had talked off the podcast about how the workplace it's not appropriate to be like, hey, what's your sexual orientation? I want to be like diverse here, and and you know what I mean. So maybe you could talk a little bit more about that point.
Well, I think that ties in a lot to his article, and he says that he wants to actually have these conversations with humans, and then he doesn't show any evidence of having done that. Because you can still have conversations with people who are queer and who are proud of that and who want to have these conversations also, but you do to some extent have to look to have those conversations. And I think that it's easier maybe to see that, I mean, if they're not wearing rainbow socks and a rainbow lapel pin, and I am saying that tongue in cheek, I don't expect anybody that's unnecessary. But that he's talking about people that are easy for him to identify by sight. That's rough, and I don't think that it should be representative of the ways that we hire people and diversify our workforce. I mean, you want to look for diversity, but is the way to do that to contact your barbershop and say, hey, y'all, do you know anybody who works in tech? Like, do you know anybody who could apply for this position? So what positions is he opening for this? Like, what kind of qualifications is he looking for? And it's systemic, right? So, sorry, you asked me one question. I went off on a tangent, but
no, yeah, you're good.
It's really hard to, as it should be. It's not something that you should ask somebody if they belong to the LGBTQIA plus community. You shouldn't ask somebody if they're queer. That's not okay. So how are you going to ensure that you're diversifying a workforce in that way unless you actually have genuine conversations with people who want to talk to you about this? And I don't see any evidence that he's reaching out to communities to make sure that he knows how to have these conversations in the first place.
Agreed. I think that the points made earlier about just business context and how did you put it? Building your Rolodex?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's...
diversifying his portfolio.
Yes. Ew, that's so much grosser and better. It's both things. It's and also.
So can we talk about then kind of connecting and segueing this to the Melinda Gates, specifically the article that was written by Wired, by Jesse Hempel, titled "Melinda Gates' New Research Reveals Alarming Diversity Numbers." It was written September 12th, 2018, and it talks about executives at tech companies say gender diversity matters. They opine that there aren't enough women in tech and express outrage and frustration that just 11% of senior tech leaders are women. But in reality, they spend very little of their philanthropic dollars attempting to close this gender and race gap, according to new research released today by Melinda Gates in partnership with McKinsey & Company. Last year, according to the report, only 5% of companies' philanthropic giving went to programs that focus explicitly on women and girls in tech, and less than 0.1% of their grants went to programming for women of color, a group whose representation in tech is getting worse. Over the past decade, the ratio of Black, Latina, and Native American women receiving computing degrees has dropped by a third, from 6% to just 4%.
That's like really upsetting because the history of like computer programming was led by women. The first computer programmer was a woman, was Ada
Yes,
Lovelace.
girl. Yep.
The reason being because men were like, women should do this job because it's super tedious and boring, you know, with the old computers. So they were like, this is for women to do because I got more interesting things to do. And then when it became more interesting, then they're like, move aside, this is my field now. Get out of here. You're not smart enough.
It's men being typical men. They're just like, oh, hey, that's a good idea. Hey, check it out, guys. This is my idea. Oh, good job.
Yeah, I made this.
Yeah, the article goes on. Oh, the article goes on to say that the company's investigative found that the last figure so alarming that 12 of the 32 participants are taking immediate action. So they're like uniting and so forth in a joint effort by companies including Microsoft and Qualcomm and LinkedIn to close that gender gap for women in color in tech, aiming to double the number of underrepresented women of color graduating with computer science degrees by 2025. And they're collectively pledging $12 million towards this goal over 3 years.
It's hard because I think that part of the thing is that you can try to hire these, like whoever you're trying to hire, but with women in these companies, there's so many issues of sexual misconduct, and those things I don't think have been adequately addressed at all. There's so many, obviously not even just in the tech field, but there's just so many reports of issues happening in the workplace against women. So even if you get them in there, they're going to end up feeling unsafe or something and leave. Just real quickly on that note, I wanted to pull up this thing. So there are like women that will come in the field, but they leave. Increasingly, they're leaving the field because on one hand, there's inadequate paternity policies, such as like no maternity leave at all, especially at a startup. And so their only option that they can see is to just completely quit. There's also the issue with companies pressuring new mothers to continue their work. I mean, a whole bunch of other bullshit like that. It's just ridiculous.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's not just tech that has inadequate maternity policies, but I mean, yeah, that's women in the workforce generally, and then it just is like made even worse in tech because there are so few women there in the first place. So it's like,
Yeah.
all the dudes in power are making it harder for women to be in fields typically populated by men and white men, and tech just happens to be, like I said, that space where it's even worse.
Yeah.
Is it even worse? I don't know. I don't want to quantify it like that, but
It seems like it's worse for some reason. And I tried to, like, when I was doing research, it was hard because obviously, like, I work in the tech field, so a lot of my news sources are around tech. But it does seem like most of these social issues are, like, heightened for some reason in the tech field.
yeah.
Which is, like, weird, strange to me because, like, one of the things that draws me to it in the first place is the aspect of tinkering, you know, kind of doing like science-based work where you're collaborating and trying to build something new and just kind of having fun creating something, building things using your mind to make something that wasn't there. And it involves a lot of collaboration. The whole thing is like perplexing to me why it seems like it's so hard for white dudes to actually collaborate.
I have an answer. Just kidding. I don't. Like that. Like if only we could just be like, right, well, this is how they could do that. Wait, I have a way to start. Don't publish this kind of bullshit on a fast company publication. Like, let's start there.
Yes.
Let's actually have a conversation. I don't know. I could be wrong.
I invite Ryan to come onto this podcast and dispel all of our myths about him.
Our
Right.
skepticism.
I want
challenge him.
names. I want names for the humans at his barbershop. That's where I'm starting.
Yeah.
I will
that's
not
our
have
demand.
a conversation. Yes.
I want their
It
names.
starts there.
I want their mama's names.
I want the friends that they sent to him to get jobs in tech, and I want to know what their position is at their company at this moment.
Yes. Oh, yeah. That reminds me of another
I wanna-
thing I want to bring up.
I want a picture on his Twitter. Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. I was going to say,
No,
I want
go
a
ahead.
picture on his Twitter that's not a white woman exemplifying diversity in his office, which happened just the other day.
Did we talk about, I think maybe we skimmed on it, but did we talk about, because I was like looking at that research for his tweet, like his prior tweets, but did we talk about how, like, especially like what he's talking about, how like the socio-economic history and like the lack of access to resources and capital in order to just to do startups and to like get into like coding and going to school and have access to those resources? Did we like how it's kind of like overlooked here in this conversation and not included? Did we talk about this?
No.
I don't know. No, not today.
That's a good point. Bring up.
Is that something we wanted
I mean,
to
kind of like with
yeah.
like my first introduction and ability to get to a point where I felt like this was an accessible career for me was the absolutely 100% free online site, Free Code Camp, which with all intents and purposes doesn't give any different information that Treehouse does. They just don't have, actually, no, they do have videos now. They didn't before, but they're not like as like high production value. But outside of that,
Do you think that if Treehouse was truly committed to like the claims that they're making, especially the ones that Ryan himself is claiming, do you think that making it more accessible, so similar to like that free online coding school, do you think that that would be something that kind of ought to be the case?
he should make it free. I think he should make it free if he really cares.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
If he really cares, he should make it free. Because the thing is, I mean, even trying to get in this field now, like I'm, 30 years old, and it's like I got so much shit to do. I'm trying to still, I was working like Starbucks in my meantime, learning how to code and learning this stuff, which is fucking hard. And other people, they have kids, just all kinds of shit, and then you got to try to pay $25 a month. I mean, at least make it a Spotify subscription of $10 a month at the very least, if you really care.
Let me play Ryan and the devil's advocate here.
Okay.
I'm not
Fuck
running
you,
a charity.
Ryan.
I'm not running a charity here. What? I'm trying to run a business. I want people to benefit from my resources.
Then you should give them to me.
There are tons of free coding resources, it seems like, online too. Maybe we can link some of those someplace. I can tweet some of them. But I mean, I feel like there are places to do that for free. It's just not Treehouse. And P.S., like Lucy was saying, P.S., Ryan, there are ways to do this. Just like there are ways to speak to people who are different from you and actual conversations to have, there are ways to make this shit free. There are ways to do it. How much money do you make?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. He makes enough. I see him in his suit.
I think that really solidifies like the point earlier about like how he's just kind of like, oh, I'm woke now and I'm totally not using this as a marketing scheme in order to get more people to use my product that I've started. Hey, don't look at those free ones over there. Look over here. I am such a good white person. I went to a barbershop I won't name.
He does make a point not to name the barbershop, and he makes it a very convenient point, not to name any other available resources. Does highlight, however, it's really, at one point says, it's really hard. I notice that it's hard for some people to be able to learn how to code. They can't afford to go to school. And so they only have like a few hours a day maybe to learn. And so the best way to do that is online through, an online coding school, hint, 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 wink, wink. That's basically it. Yeah. So one of the things I wanted to bring up too was, a few years ago, I don't know if they do this now, but Lyft had, or I think it was Tech Radar. Well, anyways, like Lyft had published their diversity numbers, whatever you even call that. Which, by the way, like, why companies always self-congratulate themselves? Like, check out how diverse we're becoming. Anyway, they released this thing there saying like, hey, our numbers of people of color, women, it's gone up from last year. Check it out. But I remember in the article reading that, okay, so those numbers did go up, but the people who are working, who are people of color, women or anything like that, like they are working customer service roles and not, executive roles or being on a development team. And that was something that was something that was parsed through the, I wish I had this article on hand, but it was done through the person who wrote the article. It wasn't necessarily published directly from Lyft. So these companies, I've noticed, will have like a thing of saying like, hey, we have more, people of color and such here at this company, but then we'll not say what those actual jobs are. And that's bullshit.
Yeah.
Because I remember, I don't know if can I say this? I don't know if I can say, I did work for Lyft. I won't say where. I did work for Lyft at one point, and I was on the front lines having to deal with all the drivers and everything like that. And my team expanded. Everyone who did my same role was Hispanic. Everyone who worked above me was white. I couldn't have had a worse manager to be my superior. He was a Boston graduate. He bragged about not doing work, would get promoted, would leave early because he needed to help move a new couch into his house, would still get promoted, and then come in and see me busting my ass, sweating bullets, dealing with bullshit, and he would go, what's wrong? And I would go, this is kind of bullshit. Like, it's the same thing over and over again. This is stupid. And he's like, well, just keep it up, or pat me on the back, and then fucking just leave. That was it. It's just frustrating.
Well, I don't know that I should equate that to a Ponzi scheme. However, these top-down models, right? And so, like these top-down models where people make money off the work and the hard work of other humans. The other component of Treehouse is this talent path thing that they're doing now. That's really just for businesses, like, and they can and like Ryan Carson's in charge of it. And so you sign up for Talent Path, and then they say that they work with community organizations that serve populations that are generally not represented in tech, whether that be socio-economic, gender, race, or sexual identity. So they say they partner with these community organizations. They give them free training and then they put them into an apprenticeship. And I don't know how much an apprenticeship's charge, like how much you get paid if you're an apprentice, but I am skeptical. I will say I am skeptical, because this is then the business paying Ryan Carson money for Ryan Carson to help them diversify. Does that make sense? And so, Ponzi scheme.
Yeah, that's interesting, because I was looking over their website again, looking at the diversity thing, and there's like a couple things that stuck out to me after like some of the things we've been discussing, and like I kind of like work backwards on the site, but like one of the things is like their recent EDI initiatives, which is the equity, diversity, and inclusion, and they kind of like give dates and quarters as to like when it began in place. And so I'm pretty sure this company is older than like 2018, but I could be wrong. But they started at 2018, but like one of them is 2019 Q1. So what? That's like, not that long ago. They said they removed what are your salary expectations questions from interviews, and
so they can pay them less.
Yeah, right. And yeah, exactly. So it makes it more, like challenging to do that. And then like in 2018, the fourth quarter, they added, like, quote, consider apprenticeship, unquote, to request to hire process. Is that like a cool feudal term for like internships that are unpaid? I mean, what?
No, same question. I like it that they call it diverse talent pipeline. So this cat has for sure read that book by Michelle Alexander about the social justice system, but we're still going to call it a pipeline?
Right.
Girl.
Right.
Choose your words. God.
Yeah. Like, and
he doesn't
to
have
me,
to choose his words. He's a white person.
And
I don't understand him. Use different words.
There's a lot of like on the website too that to me it kind of sounds like, I don't know if this is a term, but like social justice washing, where they're just trying to like come off super diverse in order to like, I don't know, like jump on some sort of like more friendly like capitalist boot on your face in a sense, like, because it's like then they talk about sustainability and like the only thing they say about it is sustainability. Along with our employee perks and work-life balance, we're proud to have an environmentally friendly office, consciously supporting our community with green practices. Like what? Why aren't you saying anything? Why aren't you telling? Why they have a thing that says silver certified? What the fuck does that mean? Why aren't you gold? Why aren't you platinum certified? And then
can you be gold and platinum certified in that?
Whose standards is this? I don't even.
That's a good point. No, that's a good point. Yeah,
And then underneath they go further. I'm sorry, I'm just going on a rant, but it's just like our team, and they just have pictures of like random people, and I'm gonna say, to me, it looks like 90% of these people are white.
Yeah.
This is just is social justice washing? Is this like equivalent to like pink washing or green washing? Like it's just like does that make I don't know, does that make sense?
Yeah, like
the new capitalist flavor.
Yeah.
The flavor of the week.
Buy a pink water bottle and you have eradicated breast cancer for all women. So it's fine. It's fine. I needed a new water bottle anyway. In addition to like, and it builds, right? And so not only is it washing, but it's so complex because yes, we're using these words because they're the buzzwords and the words we're supposed to use and to look like we are culturally relevant, to look like we are culturally sensitive to some degree. We do these things and we say these things and we print these things and we put these things on our website. But then I think the part that we're critiquing is how little of that we are still seeing on the ground. So when Lucy talks about his experiences in tech as somebody in tech, and he's saying, dude, no, like this is not, I don't look around me and see the kind of diversity that I would like to see. Like, where is Lucy's support system? How does Lucy get his foot in the door to say, no, this is how diversity actually looks? Are people in your company having that conversation with you, Lucy? I mean, like, these are the kinds of questions that I have, and I think that's why we are critiquing Ryan Carson so much, just because he published his Fast Company article, he keeps tweeting shit on his damn Twitter, and we're not seeing how that's playing out. It's just the words, it's just the social justice washing, and it isn't sort of like this free coding, or it isn't this, sort of like push. I'm so glad that you're partnering with community organizations. Like, that's awesome. Good job. I want to give an honest thumbs up. That sounds exciting. I like that those people get it for free. I don't like that they go to an apprenticeship that we don't know how much money these folks are making.
And you don't talk about it.
Do you know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah.
Like that was a question removed.
Yes. Like, are these equitable business practices, or do they just make you look good and they're making you more money? Oh, I bet you that's making him more money.
Oh.
And also, okay, fine, make more money, but then reinvest that, as opposed to just like making some sort of pyramid thing where you encourage people who rely on those community organizations that you're working with, air quotes, working with, to get diversity in tech. I mean, I don't see that reinvestment, and I'm not convinced. Like, I am not convinced by the words he's using, the shit he's posting, the stuff he's publishing. I don't believe you.
Yeah, I think everything you mentioned there, like, spot on, really excellent critique. And I think you helped clarify kind of the intention and what we're discussing here and why we're critiquing him so much. One thing that stuck out on the website that I think is related to what you're talking about, they did mention how they anonymize like the job applications to hide gender, age, ethnicity, education, background, for the aim of reducing hidden and unintended biases. Like they make that really explicit under their commitment to equity, diversity, and inclusion. But I think we've had this discussion like prior about this concept of hiring practices, like the blind hiring. So, for example, like no last name. But we had discussed like certain instances where you would like use your Starbucks name, for example. Like I had a peer who had a name that it was a name that if you heard it, you would probably assume their ethnicity, and even if you anonymize their last name, it still would have been the case that probably would have occurred. And my peer, they had expressed how they had not been hired. They felt like they weren't being hired from like various jobs that they applied to because of that. And so this kind of brings up this concept is the Starbucks name, where you basically adopt a different name in order for it to just be easier or simpler or whatnot, right? I'm not quite sure is that really the answer to doing this? Like,
not Black Chad. Not Gay Sue. Like, what? I don't understand.
It's like one way to go about it, because I know, like, along those lines, like my partner, when looking for a house, we email these companies and people, and her face would show up in the like Gmail avatar thing, and she's a black woman, and she wouldn't get any responses, so she just had an idea, like, what if I take that off and I just replace it with some, whatever kind of text, it just says like love or something. And then right after that, anecdotally, I was like, obviously she was gaining responses back and forth, and she was able to actually make some deals and actually go somewhere. It's like something that it's like, I don't think that's an answer, because that's bullshit, because then it's like now I have to be like ashamed of myself almost.
Exactly.
Yeah.
To just get my foot in the door, just to be considered, to be heard.
Yeah. So Ryan Carson's article, it's not them, it's you, except it's also them. Ellipses. It's not them, it's you. ... It's also them. And so we're gonna take these practices and we're gonna do these things because that's a problem. Oh, how are you addressing that issue in your company? Are you doing anti-discrimination training? Are you doing cultural bias training, implicit bias training? Like, where's your training extras? I want to see how you're doing that. Who's doing those for you? How are you fixing you? Because no, I agree with you, Lucy. Like, that's shitty. Like, it's erasing an important part of your identity, and a part of your identity that this dude is saying that he wants to fix in the first place.
Yeah.
If he's being honest, if it's not them, it's you, then fix you and do it right. And it's going to take time, and you're going to have to recognize that. And having like emoticons on your Twitter in like different colors of hands doing like the praise thing or whatever, like, no, that's not it. Girl, that's not it.
I'm diverse. I use different color emojis.
Well, that's the systemic nature of this, right? Like, that's the equity and access part. Like, why would you erase all of that when it is important. I mean, like, it's again that double-edged sword of how are you addressing issues of equity and diversity and equity, not equality. We're not looking for equality over here. I'm talking about equity all the way. I'm talking about things that people need when they need it. Not necessarily everybody gets the same thing. We need to understand the difference between those things, and you do need more diversity. But that means that you're going to have to talk about equity, and that means, again, money where your mouth is.
Yeah, and I think that connects in too with this, like, kind of maybe it's a little bit more macro, but talking about this distinctions in diversity. I'm not convinced that getting more, like, just more white women into tech is the answer here. Not to say
agree.
Not to say that, you know, we shouldn't get more white women in tech, but I feel like this kind of corporate answer, this tech answer, is like, just get more women in, and then, as we saw with the data earlier, like, if you're a person of color, you get like 0.1 funding, like, you know what I'm saying?
No, totally. And as a white woman, I agree with you. That tweet that I referenced earlier, where there's a woman sitting at a boardroom table, and Ryan Carson tweeted this. I don't remember the date. I think we have the date for it. But he tweeted a white woman at a table. He's like, look at diversity in a company. And as a white woman, I'm like, no, that's not what that looks like. She's just
leaning in.
Oh, no, you did not just say that.
Assume power stance A. Go.
Oh, no, is that what I'm doing, being on a podcast with all men? Do I need to be more masculine to fit into the space? Is that what needs to happen? Someone needs to tell me now. Can you mansplain it to me?
We need to lean out, obviously.
Well, actually...
Yes. And it's funny because I know you're joking. So otherwise, because if Ryan Carson said that to me right now, I'd want to pop him in his nose. That would be me leaning in. That would be me taking, like that more masculine.
Well, you have to lean in because that gives you more of the force that you need to do the damage to your face.
Exactly. I really got to, put my shoulder into it. Sort of sashay towards his face, if you will.
Just, if I can, just explain this, but make sure that you square off your hips when you punch, because that gives you more.
Okay, no, that's really good. I don't condone violence towards Ryan Carson without talking to him first. I'm just worried that this is where it would go. Like, I'm preemptively concerned that having a conversation with Ryan Carson, he has a kind of a punchable face, really, honestly.
He wore a fedora and, like, sported a fedora quite often at one point, and I was like, ooh, this says a lot.
Because when he does have these, when he does have these conversations, like, he'll post videos and stuff, but he's always kind of, like, conveniently in some space that he's basically created. And so it's all very kind of curated.
Oh, I want to see the behind the scenes for that. Like, all right, a black person over here, a woman over here, and action. Hi, I'm Ryan Carson, and my company is
like, no, one black person at a time. One black person at a time. Please.
Tip fedora.
It's just frustrating. Yeah.
I would like to see, like, because you're right, because he's the one that's going out there, and he's the one that's he's the one that's talking shit. So, like, actually show yourself doing the work, like getting out there talking to people, and they're like, and not on a couch that you paid for, in a studio that you paid for, with a production crew that you paid for, but, like, I don't know.
Yeah, it would be really interesting.
Be actually out there.
It would be really interesting to see an intersectional Marxist, like, version of Ryan, like, if he got like even more, like, social justice, like, legit critical woke, and just be like, oh my god, I'm exploiting all this labor, holy fuck, I'm a bourgeoisie, like, but then go further with it. Dope. I don't know. Maybe in an alternate reality.
Maybe he's just on his way. Maybe we should be more supportive, because maybe that's, like, the next step, and he'll have another article.
I don't want to give the bourgeoisie, I don't want to give oppressors that benefit of the doubt. I don't know.
I'm so torn by so much of this conversation, because I know that we are in spaces where we're able to be really critical about this, and I would suggest that we're all pretty, I mean, like, we have power and privilege just in our ability to talk about these sorts of things, and so maybe other folks look at Ryan Carson's tweets and his like dedication to hashtagging diversity and inclusion. Sorry, I have a hard time saying that without laughing. But maybe, those hashtags are really important to other folks. Could that possibly be true? I kind of want to believe that there's a white guy in tech who like is really interested in this. It just also seems like he's commodifying it. Yes. But then maybe he has to do that to get the word out. Like, I don't know. I don't know enough about, like, if I change this to academia, right? Like, if I look at academia and the spaces where I occupy, and you have all these people talking about how we need more diversity in these spaces, right? Like, we need more women and people of color in engineering. And so the engineering department at the university is like, oh, yeah, how do we increase that? And then I continually see that not happening. Like, it's that sort of pattern, that cyclical pattern of a lot of talk and then, like, no action to actually make that happen, because you're not dealing with those base issues that are causing a lack of women and people of color and people from different, like socioeconomic back. You're not addressing the root causes that they're not there in the first place. So really it's all talk. So really it's all hashtags. So really it's all, like, let's do an apprenticeship and pay somebody less than their worth because at least we're getting them in the door. Mm-hmm. It's hard. That's hard. But also, is that necessary? I think if we were going to talk about things in a radical fashion, no, that's not how you could do it. You could just open the doors. You could just be like, nope, I'm not hiring anybody but Black, Latinx, women of color. Like, that's all, like, for one whole year. That's all. That's the only folks that we're hiring.
Fuck yeah. That would offend so many white people. It would be so amazing.
It would offend so many white people, but look what that would do if you're really serious about it.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Wow, you just, like, called him out. You, like...
I like it.
I like it.
Again, I have power in that, right? Like, I have this platform where I can just be like, dude, homie.
You can grab his ear, pull it towards, and go listen. So I want to get
after I lean in.
Yep.
No, you make him lean in.
Oh, yeah. Power move.
Yeah, you finger over for him to come over. You go, come here. He leans in, then you grab his fucking ear and you go, you fucking listen to this shit, sir, kind sir. I want to give an honorable mention. A mention to the person who made the site Free Code Camp. His name is Quincy Larson. So far as I found, like, I didn't actually do a ton of research, but I don't see him going out there explicitly saying, look how awesome I am at making things diverse. Mm-hmm. However, I would argue that he actually is making things diverse because he made a free platform to learn. Yeah. So therefore it's more accessible. Mm-hmm. But he's not going out there saying, here's how accessible it is specifically to Black people, and here's why I communicate with only Black people, or whatever the thing is. Like, his thing is just like, specifically, if you want to learn a code, if you want to get into this field, the best way is to learn, and it's really difficult to learn. He says he made the site freecodecamp.com because he started learning when he was in his 30s, and it was really difficult and lonely for him, and he just wanted to create a resource to make it easier for other people to learn, but also have a community of people to work together, so he won't feel so lonely on the journey. Mm-hmm. And that's it. That's as far as he goes. He doesn't try to white knight himself in any kind of path. As far as I can see, I haven't seen any articles or anything like that. But I've gone to a few meetups for a free code camp, and those meetups do tend to have more women and people of color than all the other meetups that I've been to.
Cool.
So I don't know. I think that says something.
Yeah, I was just looking at the Quincy Larson's like Twitter, and he does like post some stuff. Like, for example, there's a tweet he did is like on the 31st of May saying like, I just discovered from Free Code Camp's Instagram, a group of 100 women in Karachi are working through the Free Code Camp curriculum together. And basically like cheers to bringing these people together and whatnot. Because I think, as you said, like you kind of do like these groups when you meet in person to do it. And I think it's more of like it doesn't come off as like the Ryans where he's just like being a try hard, like, you know, so much. Instead, it's more like, oh, cool. Like on this Instagram, like basically somebody is doing this. Awesome. Rather than being like, we are doing this and look over here.
Well, He's lifting other voices is what he's
Yeah,
doing.
there we
And
go.
as white, and so, I mean, like Ryan Carson can talk about how he's an ally. He's obviously not an advocate because advocates lift other people's voices. You want people to be heard that are different from you. Quincy Larson is a really good example of how you do that. It's not about him. It's about other folks making a difference. And that's impactful.
Absolutely. So I think that's a good call to action, Ryan. You know, you should look at Quincy Larson and how he's doing it and really reconsider your commodification and capitalization on basically this white knight social justice washing bullshit that you're doing.
Yeah.
Yeah, Ryan, you need to take a long, hard look in that deep, dark, truthful mirror. You need to be more like Quincy.
all heroes have one, right? They all must have one in some form or another. Maybe he just needs a talking cat.
A talking cat.
Maybe that's what he's missing.
Hey, if he pays well enough, I'll be a talking cat for him.
Oh, no, do not.
Hey guys, I just got an apprenticeship. It's pretty sweet. It's pretty feudal, but I'm a cat now. Like,
They say there's a lot of upward mobility.
Oh,
I also
God.
get 7 lives.
We're,
You get 7 lives.
9. Who are you?
Oh, yeah, it is 9.
Cats have 9 lives.
Oh
Lazarus.
shit! Whoops.
Gosh.
Well, here to
Get
use.
up on your cat culture, man. You can't speak to something you don't know.
I'm thinking dog years. I'm a dog person. 7 years, right? God.
I think dogs just have 1 life.
See, it shows how much I
why
wouldn't be
they're so
able to fill
present.
that position.
Oh, that's all right. Lucy fits the stereotypical need for Ryan Carson's company anyway. Are we giving him like a lot of free press? I mean, like, I've mentioned this name. I feel like a lot.
Well, I mean, I guess we are, but also it's still $25 a month. So, I mean,
I saw it's like 200 if you do something. I thought I saw that. Like that's a fuck ton of money.
by the way, those videos are fucking boring. With the teachers, like they're high production quality, but they're so fucking boring.
Yeah, it's like $200 a month. Get started today for $199 a month.
What is that?
It's to get like a tech degree or something. I don't know, some bullshit.
It's problematic and it's systematic and it's cringy and it's not fun to talk about and absolutely necessary. And I don't think that the way some communities are talking about these issues right now are great. I just don't know that that's what we need. Between the blind hiring, the need for Melinda Gates to be like, there are no women in tech. No shit. Sure. Why does she have to post something for people like, oh, you're right, we should probably talk about that? White dudes determining what diversity actually is and what that means and what that looks like, and they're determining and obviously not having conversations with the actual people who this impacts the most. It's a problem bigger than this conversation. It's a problem bigger than Ryan Carson. It's a problem bigger than the tech industry. It's just that someone also needs to critique the way we're talking about it, I feel like.
Mm-hmm. I feel like a lot of the stuff I said early on, I was like, just delete me out. I'm just a cis white guy. Like, just delete me out of this episode, basically.
No, but as a woman, again, cisgender white woman, I feel like that's advocating for people who are different from you. And so that's important to me as a woman because I never feel, in speaking with you, Lazarus, that you do not hear what I'm saying. And that's powerful for people who have been minoritized. Not people who are the minority.
Yeah.
We don't say shit like that anymore, Ryan Carson. But the people who are systemically minoritized, to hear those voices is important for cis white men generally, because the cis part and, you know, the heteronormative part of that. But it's important because if you're not lifting other people's voices, there aren't other people in power who can do that. It's people like you.
Yeah.
So that's
And also,
the white woman.
And to that point, like as a person of color, it's sometimes you just feel intimidated, scared to confront the person that needs to hear. Like the person who needs to hear from you, you feel the most afraid to talk to sometimes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, true. I almost never feel that way, actually. I gotta be really honest. There's this episode of 30 Rock where Alec Baldwin's character is talking to Tina Fey's character, and he's like, you have the confidence of a much younger woman. And I feel like that a lot. I'm like, yeah, I have. Mm-hmm. Leaning in has never been a problem for me, but that's the problem for me. So it's like, oh, white men call me out like that, right? Like, how come you feel like this is a space where you can speak? And I'm like, I don't know. Why is
That's
that
awesome. I aspire to that. I feel like Kip from Futurama most of the time.
Leela,
I just have an issue with the diversity policy. If I could just please have a moment of your time, sir, please.
And that's when like Ryan comes in as Zach Brannigan. He's like, "Oh, diversity. Let me tell you."
And then I come on this podcast, anonymize myself so I can talk shit because I'm so fucking terrified.
Right? That was a struggle. Whenever we talked about like figuring out a different name, I was like, no, I don't want to. Like, I don't want to be, by my nature, I would rather be who I am. I would rather be me and be able to talk. But these are scary times, man. Like, this is not a time for any kind of woman to speak her mind. You will get shot. Worst case scenario. Best case scenario, you work for Lyft. Just kidding.
That sounds...
Just playing.
All right. On that note, I think that's a good note to end on.
Yeah.
Oh.
Oh, is he gonna? Mark's he gonna edit that part out too?
No, all of this is staying in.
I like that.
Everything.
Tragedy plus time equals more tragedy.
We're actually live streaming this, so. Oh. All right. Well, is there anything else we wanted to comment or discuss about this?
I love that we have an outline that is barely used. Like, I apologize. I feel like that's nearly always my fault. You will see when other co-hosts come on that they're like, let's stick to the outline. I'm like, what outline? I even have it up like on my computer.
Same.
Like, oh shit.
Same.
Bobbing and weaving through the timeline at this point. Sorry.
No,
My bad.
don't apologize. I was
we did
doing
touch on a lot of this.
Yeah.
We did.
It's more like a rule of, or not rule of thumb, but like a general outline.
You got to know the rules in order to
hard.
break them. My anarchist side is.
It's more so like, I think it's when we first did this, we didn't have any outline, so we lost track all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's more so we can just go back to that if we're panicking. I think.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Was today panicking? Did it go all right?
Not at all. It's okay. Just kidding.
Thank you for joining us. Don't come back.
I think it was great. We thought you had left after I did my, what was it, sashaying? After I did my poor attempt at sashaying.
Yeah.
And you're like, I have to update, and then you're like, I'm gone forever.
That human is never coming back to this platform ever again. Okay.
All right. That's it for this episode. Next episode, we're going to be talking about whiteness and white fragility. And
Yes.
Hell yeah.
if you want to discuss and examine topics, or oh god, I'm so off today.
New phone. Who dis?
All right. If you have any ideas or comments about the show, you can drop us a line on our voicemail at 208-502-1406. You can also send us an email, which we'll be more than happy to probably not read online or on air, or maybe at publicspacetravel@gmail.com.
Thanks so much for listening to Public Space Travel. This is Hunty. You can find me on Twitter at PSTHunty, Lazarus at PSTLazarus, Lucy at PSTLucy, and our shadow producer Marks at PSTInTheShadows. Thanks so much for listening. We'll catch you next time.
Public space travel.
Don't worry, buddy. You're doing fine.
Public space travel.